Hello, everybody. My name is Zainab Hamid, and I'm a development coordinator here at JA Dallas. Thank you to everybody who's joining us today, and an incredible thank you to our sponsors, American City Business Journal, the Dallas Business Journal, and AMN Healthcare for making this session possible. So today's session will be about Like a Girl Boss. Some of the topics that we will cover will include mentorship, business etiquette, networking, and much more. So if you have any question, please type them in the chat box and we'll be sure to get to them as soon as possible. Now, again, for all the students that are here with us today, if you could please change your name to your full name and your school name so we know who's here with us. And then if you also want to fill out our pre-session survey, today we will be announcing a raffle. So we will have 2 lucky winners that will win a $25 gift card if you do the pre and post session survey. So we will include the link down in the chat box, and I'll give everybody a minute to also get to do that, and then we'll move on to the session. Okay, perfect. So while everybody else is continuing to work on that, today's session will be split into 3 different parts. So we have our panel that will be starting soon. After that, we'll have a short video for all of you to watch about entrepreneurship. And then after that, we will have our moderated breakout session. Now, if you guys can all join me in welcoming Zara Jones. She is a JA alum, as well as our AmeriCorps member working at JA.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Zara Jones, and I am the Youth Readiness Coordinator here at JA, and I will be moderating this panel. Today, we have special panelists and breakout volunteers with us from American City Business Journal, Dallas Business Journal, and AMN Healthcare. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Shelby Benton, Vice President of Sales at Dallas Business Journal. Then we have Ms. Taylor Tompkins, Assistant Managing Editor at Dallas Business Journal. And then we have Ms. Tracy Merzy, Vice President of Local Markets at American City Business Journal. So now let's get started. So Ms. Shelby, can you please tell us, what do you do?
Yes, thank you, Zara, for having me on the panel today. And I'm so excited to virtually meet all the students out there. So I really appreciate you attending today. Thank you again for your time. So I am the Vice President of Sales at the Dallas Business Journal. And what that means is I bring in all the money. So just to make it simple and easy, I have a team of folks on here. Chandler's on my team. She's fantastic. And we are responsible for all of the revenue for Dallas Business Journal. So sponsorships, advertising, print and digital revenue. And we'll get into a little bit more later on, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shelby, for sharing. Ms. Taylor, can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also really excited to be here. Thanks for having us. While Shelby brings in the money, my side of the office, we create all the content. So we write articles, we do all of the entire Dallas Business Journal website, social media, all of that good stuff. So I run a team of journalists, and we kind of day in and day out go out into the community and talk to business leaders and let people know what they're doing.
That sounds very fun. Miss Tracy, can you share with us a bit about what you do?
Welcome, everybody. I'm really excited that you're all here today. And I am excited to be with my colleagues who I have actually not seen in a very, very long time. So I actually work for the parent company of the Dallas Business Journal. I was formerly basically the president of the Dallas Business Journal for several years. And now I work with 9 of our other business journals across the country. So I work with the heads of all of those business journals, and I help them on the revenue side mainly, but also on the editorial side as well. So I'm I'm the management piece of it. Nice to be here.
That sounds like so much fun. So our first question, Ms. Shelby, I'll have you start off. How can you be assertive in the workspace without sounding aggressive?
Yeah, Zara, that's a great question. And I think something that women leaders have to deal with on a regular basis that our male counterparts don't necessarily have to as often. So I think the biggest piece of advice that I have for folks is to really always keep it professional and keep it factual. So that's one lesson that I've learned in management is if you have a situation with an employee, your first reaction just might be to get a little bit more emotional about it and bring up things that have happened in the past and so forth. But just keep it really factual and assert yourself in a professional way. But also just making sure that you do bring yourself to the full table there as well. So if you have something and you want to say it, definitely make sure that you stand up and say that. So just keep it professional, I think, is really the biggest piece of advice.
Thank you so much for sharing. Ms. Taylor, is there anything that you would like to add?
Sure, I would just piggyback off that and really hone in. As a journalist, of course, I'm going to be the one that says, just make sure you're talking about the facts. I would agree with that. If you can kind of say, well, here's what happened. This is a fact, not how I feel necessarily. Like Shelby said, it's really easy to get into that and stick to the facts. It's really easy to be assertive without being aggressive.
Thank you so much for sharing. Ms. Tracy, is there anything that you would like to add about being assertive in the workspace?
Yes. So I would add that in addition to being factual, I think it's really important that you speak from a place of confidence. And that's part of the factual thing that they're talking about. That I feel like this assertive versus aggressive is a horrible stereotype that women have been accused of for so many years, and it's really not. It's not true. Being assertive. I mean, if you're being assertive to some degree, you are being. I mean, it is a little bit aggressive. It's just for some reason the stereotype that comes from for women is just a thing that we've had to overcome. So I do think it's important that when you're being assertive, it's really you're speaking from a place of confidence. You feel like confident in what you are saying, and I think that's the important thing. And I think that's the differentiator between being assertive and being aggressive. And it's how people perceive you, unfortunately.
Thank you so much for sharing, and just adding all the confidence in it is definitely something I completely agree with. So our next question is, what are some challenges you have faced in the workforce as a female business leader? Ms. Shelby, would you like to lead with this question?
Sure, absolutely. I think some of the challenges kind of piggyback on a little bit what we were just talking about, just being seen as that authoritative figure. Some other challenges I would say would be being a young female leader. So there's been times where one of my first jobs in management with this company, I calculated that I was 7 years younger than the youngest person that I was managing. So that was kind of interesting, making sure that they saw me as, the leader and the manager and the team. But again, to Tracy's point, just showing up and being really confident and being prepared. So I was always, the most prepared person in the room, basically. So I think that's been, a way to combat that and overcome that challenge as well. So just being prepared, being confident, showing up. But those are some of the challenges I think some of the young women on this call will face, being young leaders in future careers that they have.
Thank you so much for sharing that experience. Ms. Taylor, what are some challenges that you have faced in the workspace?
For sure. I'm going to tackle this from a kind of different angle. I think Shelby kind of covered it from within your own company, but I think I go out and I talk to a lot of executives, CEOs, business owners, and a lot of them are older men, kind of like Shelby said. And I think a lot of the time, it's unfortunate, but if you can prove yourself, you know what you're talking about, can prove that, again, you're confident, but also you're good at your job. You wouldn't be in your job if you weren't good at your job for the most part. So just proving that and being confident in that really helps kind of overcome that sometimes.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Taylor. Ms. Tracy, what are some challenges you have faced in the workforce as a female business leader?
So I'm gonna use something from my current situation, the current situation that I'm in, and I'm in the unique position that at my level, I'm the only woman at my level, and so I interact. I interact with all males every day, every week. And, I love what Taylor said about proving yourself, because I think that's a big thing. But one of the things that's a challenge sometimes is having a voice, and being, being heard, making sure that you're heard, making sure like you actually, sometimes you have to, interrupt to get a word in edgewise, but it's important that you do, because you don't want to be silent, you want to be heard. So I think that's one of the unique challenges that I face at my level, due to the fact that I am the only woman. And it's interesting because when the people that you're with are not used to that dynamic, having a woman's voice, it changes the dynamic, and it changes the conversation. And it's important because diversity of thought is really, really important. And obviously, men and women think differently and they approach things differently. So, I would say having a voice is a challenge that you have to deal with.
Yeah, Zara, I'd love to jump in and just piggyback off what Tracy said. I think another thing that women can do to support other women is if you hear that one of your female colleagues in a room has, expressed a great idea, and then you'll find this often that maybe 3-4 minutes later, a male counterpart around the table will come up with the same exact idea. And then everybody's like, oh yes, Bob Smith, that's such a great idea. So if you, as another woman in the room can say, oh, that is a great idea. Tracy, I think you were talking a little bit about that earlier. Can you jump up and, elaborate on what you were saying to kind of bring it back to that female leader who actually had the idea to begin with? I see that all the time where women will say something and it's as if nobody heard it. And then 5 minutes later, a guy will have the exact same idea. And then everybody will be so excited about that. So that's one thing that I think you can do as another woman at the table is just support each other.
Thank you so much for sharing those key points, especially the diversity of thought and making sure that your voice is being heard. Those are very important key points that I definitely took away. Our next question is, what is your advice for young women who want to start their own business? Ms. Shelby?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice is just don't give up. If you have a dream, then you need to stick with it. And just know that there's going to be good days, bad days, challenging days. And I know that we'll get into this a little bit more later on, but finding a mentor, I think, is very important. So that could be a mentor who's maybe in a similar line of business as you that you can learn from and get some, best practices from. But again, you've got to show up every single day with a positive attitude. And then if there's something that you don't know, then that's how you build your team. So, as a leader, you can't be good at every single aspect of everything. So if there's a strength that I don't have, then let's hire someone on my team or to be a partner who has that strength and can complement me. So that's the best way to grow your business.
Thank you so much for sharing. And Ms. Shelby, I'm going to ask you to piggyback off of another question, which is, what does being a girl boss mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So being a girl boss, I think, comes with a lot of responsibility because, it's funny, Tracy's actually been one of the women in our company that I've looked up to for years. So I followed her career around and just really appreciate the path that she's led that, allowed me to actually be in the role that I am. If there weren't trailblazers like her leading the way, then there wouldn't be people like me and then the people that are going to come after me in these roles. So I think making sure that you are setting a really good example, always paying it forward. So any female that's on my team, I always try to set aside time to mentor them and make sure that I am bringing them forward and, lifting them up the ladder as I climb. So that's one thing that I think in prior generations, there's been a little bit of a gap between where, if there's only one seat at the table for a female, it's been a little bit competitive, like, oh, I want that seat and I don't want anyone else to be there. Whereas instead, like, we should be building and bringing up other female leaders behind us instead of leaving them behind. So I think it's an important responsibility and something that you just have to go above and beyond to do.
Thank you so much for sharing, Miss Shelby. So Miss Taylor, what is your advice for young women who want to start their own business, and what does being a girl boss mean to you?
Sure. So My advice for starting your own business is a little more pragmatic. I have never started my own business, but I talk to people who have every day, some super successful and some not so much, and some people who have had both, and I would say that there are two key things. The first being be passionate about what you're doing. Pick something that you really care about, you're really interested in, and are really knowledgeable about. And the second being find the money. Find people who will support you, find programs that you can fit into that can help you find out how to get money. There's a lot of things, a lot of programs, a lot of organizations out there that can help with the funding piece. And a lot of times it can be a great idea, but you don't have the money, and that makes or breaks a business. So that would be my advice there. And then to the second question, what does being a girl boss mean? I agree a lot with a lot of what Shelby said, but I would also add that I think a lot of times we associate being a boss with traditionally masculine attributes of certain things, or whatever the case may be, and it's a good thing for men, however that may be. And I think being a girl boss means doing it your way, doing it in a way, being a boss, being a leader, hitting your targets, helping your people, but doing it in a way that makes sense to you and not trying to be the person that's ahead of you or the person in front of you, doing it your way.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Taylor. Ms. Tracy, what is your advice for young women who want to start their own business, or maybe even characteristics that you think that we should own? And what does a girl boss mean to you?
So for the starting a business, I, like Taylor, have never started my own business, but same thing. I mean, we write about people who start businesses every day. I totally echo the passion piece of it. I mean, if you're going to start a business, you absolutely have to be passionate about it, because it is hard work. And finding the money, yes, you have to have customers. So that piece is really important. But I think it's great to, if you're going to start a business, you can't be afraid to take risks, right? I mean, to me, you're kind of automatically a risk taker if you're going to start your own business, because it could be like Taylor said, it can work out and sometimes it doesn't work out. So I think you got to be passionate. You got to be a risk taker, and you have to want to solve a problem for your customers. I mean, that's ultimately how your business that's how a great business keeps going. You got to solve a problem. So that's how I would answer that. And I am going to piggyback on what Taylor said. Being a girl boss to me is being yourself and embracing the feminine qualities and characteristics that we have that are unique to us as women leaders. And when I say those unique qualities that make us who we are, I mean, they're things like empathy and being vulnerable, which is okay. Also, where we tend to be good listeners. And I think it's really important. You have to be yourself, but embrace those qualities, because that's what makes us good leaders. And that's what makes us different kinds of leaders from our male counterparts. And it's not saying one is maybe better than the other. But I think that is really what makes women great leaders. Embrace it. Embrace yourself.
Thank you so much all for sharing. And so I want to ask one more question. And this is going to be a quick question, starting with Ms. Shelby. Do you have a mentor, and how have they shaped you in your professional life?
Yes, absolutely. I think having a mentor and a sponsor within your organization and externally is so important. So I've had a few different mentors throughout my career, and different times for different mentors. So if there's something, that you're trying to build your career and grow within an organization, you might have a different mentor than maybe when you're in that position and just looking to kind of develop and hone your skills. So one mentor example that I have here is the other piece of advice that I have, let me pause there, is to also have male mentors as well. So If there is male like leadership in your company, it doesn't always have to be a female mentor. It can be a male mentor as well. They can help you in growing there. But one example I have is there were a couple of different career opportunities that I was looking to pursue within our organization, and really talk with my mentor about what are the pros and the cons of these career opportunities. And there was one that I really thought that was going to be the one for me. And he actually said, you know what, based on your skill set and kind of where I see you going, I don't really think that's the right choice for you. And it was a little bit hard to hear at first, because I really just wanted him to say exactly what I wanted him to say, which he didn't. And that's what makes a really good mentor, is hearing the things that maybe you don't want to hear, but taking that feedback to heart and kind of going forward with that decision. So I think having a mentor is really important to bounce ideas off of, and certainly recommend that to everybody on the call here.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ms. Shelby. Ms. Tracy, do you have a mentor, and how have they shaped you in your professional life?
So I have had several mentors. I feel very lucky to have had many mentors and sponsors. So there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. Mentor is somebody who guides you through and helps you make decisions, and especially in your career, gives you a lot of career advice. A sponsor is somebody who actually actively, in your organization, takes an interest in you to move you up the ladder. And I've been lucky to have both. And like Shelby said, I have men and women, and I do think it's really important to have both, because here again, it's the diversity of thought. You need to hear from different people to understand, their viewpoint, and I think that's really important. So, and actually, one of my female mentors, who was my boss several years ago, we are so close to this day. I was just in Denver on a business trip, and she lives there now, and I had breakfast with her, and we probably talk more now than we have in years. So they're relationships that can last a lifetime. I guess that's the other thing I would say, because those people care about you. So they have a vested interest in making sure and helping you to succeed. So they're lifelong friendships, and that's a great thing to have.
Thank you so much for sharing. And Ms. Taylor, do you have a mentor, and how have they shaped you in your professional life?
Yeah, I would say, like Shelby and Tracy, I've had a lot of mentors, and I think Shelby made an excellent point. You need different mentors for different times in your career, the different things you need. And that diversity of thought is also really important. I've had women, men, women of color, like people from different backgrounds, different places. And I think that's really important for your personal development as well. But I would say that mentorship is super important, because there are things that I am now saying to the people that I'm mentoring and managing today that my mentor said to me, 5-10 years ago. I actually just kind of passed a little tidbit along to one of my employees that I was talking to in the office an hour ago. And I said that, and I was like, oh gosh, when you sound like your mom, I was like, I sound like my mentor. So I think that that's why it's important. It's stuff that sticks with you, and it's knowledge that, kind of back to Shelby's earlier point, you can pass along to women who are working with you to give them that leg up as well. So
awesome. Thank you so much to all of our incredible sponsors for making this session possible. And I hope everyone gained something new from our panelists today. I know I sure did. I am now going to turn the session back over to Nikki West, Senior Manager of Major Events and Giving at JA.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, a big virtual round of applause for our wonderful panelists today. And again, also a big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Toyota Commercial Industries Finance, as well as American City Business Journal, Dallas Business Journal, and AMN Healthcare. Thank you guys so much for supporting this program and empowering the future generation of women leaders. So we are about to watch a short video. This video is featuring one of our JA volunteers. Her name is Leah Frazier. She is a 2-time Emmy Award-winning entrepreneur, and she's also the CEO of Think3 Media, which is a Dallas-based PR firm. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. And then after the video, we will open back up for an open Q&A with some of our breakout volunteers.
So what does the capacity to have an effect on someone or something look like to you? If you need some help defining what influence is for you, don't worry, guys, because we have not a one-time, but 2 times Emmy Award winner to help us figure it all out. Welcome, Leah Frazier. Come on down.
Thank you so much, Bridget, and thank you, Junior Achievement of Dallas, for having me today. Okay, so I'm gonna start off by telling you guys a little secret. I am ridiculously obsessed with unicorns, and it all started at a young age. From My Little Pony parties to my Lisa Frank magical school supplies and accessories. Hope I'm not telling my age here. I was always blown away with magical things that could make people dream of more, and that just made them happy. So what's so special about unicorns? Well, unicorns symbolize so many amazing things. They're the most wondrous of the mythical creatures, and they symbolize magic, miracles, and enchantment. But they're also extremely rare. So as I talk to you today about entrepreneurship and my journey, I want you to think of a unicorn, but this time you're the unicorn. In fact, we're all unicorns. But for the next couple of minutes, I want you to reimagine yourself as the magical, rare, powerful, and enchanting creation that you are. And that because of this magic that you possess, you're able to help and heal people. And you're able to not only make your dreams come true, but others too. Currently, people know me as an entrepreneur, a woman who owns her own business, as a thriving marketing and PR professional, a professional model, a journalist, an author, a speaker, a professor, a stylist, and so much more. However, it didn't always start off for me this way because I didn't know or own up to my own magic. In fact, I didn't even know what I wanted to be. Let's start back to college. I started off trying to major in computer science because I thought I could make a lot of money. But then I quickly changed my major my sophomore year to criminal justice because for one, that's where all of the hot basketball players were. And because it seemed really cool to learn about law enforcement and to become a cop. But in college, when I thought I wanted to become a cop, I had a professor that told me I actually needed to go to law school. So after college, I went to law school and became an attorney shortly thereafter. So I'm gonna stop here by saying to you guys that it is a-okay if you're not sure right now where you wanna go or who exactly you want to be. Sometimes you have to take twists and turns in the roads to figure it all out. And then one day, just like for me, it'll all come together. So no stress, okay? So here's where the unicorn magic starts coming in. All right, follow me here. As my first year as an attorney, I began having these dreams, y'all. And the dreams were coming every single night. I was styling these women. They were wearing these fabulous designer clothes, and I was surrounded by purses and shoes. Like, who wouldn't want to be surrounded by purses and shoes? Lots of them. I couldn't really pinpoint why I was having the dreams. It was just surreal. I thought it was probably because I watched too much TV, too many fashion shows, or maybe because I shopped way too much. And I still do to this day, but I digress. The dreams wouldn't go away. So I decided to do something with it and ended up starting my own little personal shopping business for women just like me. I organized their closets, I shopped for them, and best of all, I spent their money, not mine. And as I did this, I was still full-time practicing law as an attorney. But immediately after I started my personal shopping business, I started blogging, which turned into calls to go on TV for fashion segments, to going to New York Fashion Week and seeing all of the top runway shows. I styled music videos, and I did so much more. It truly felt like a dream. And from there, the blogging even blew up. I interviewed the top fashion designers in the world. I, Leah, hosted fashion shows for Neiman Marcus, department stores, and more. Like, what is this life? And then 3 years into my hobby, you guys, I made it on Vogue.com. I was just before then reading all of their magazines, and here I was on their website. So it was at this point that I knew there was something special about what I was doing, that I had a gift, and that I had to lean and run with it. But right now, let's just press pause, okay? I want you to think long and hard and be honest, okay? Is there a dream that you have that won't let you sleep at night? Do you see yourself in places only people can only imagine in their dreams? I want you to ask yourself, and this is just between you and yourself, what does that look like? Who do you see yourself being? Don't think about what your mama tells you. Don't think about what your daddy tells you, your brother, your sister. Who do you see yourself being? Now, I want you to find the time after this, and I want you to write that vision down. This is a part of that unicorn magic I'm going to keep talking about. Each and every one of us has a journey. It is so unique and it's so magical that we're supposed to take. That as soon as you just get rid of all the voices in your head and you say yes to it, just like I did, things will start falling into place because that's where you're supposed to be. So, what is that thing that makes you happy when you think about doing it? Think about that. I want you to write that down. Okay, keep that in mind. So let's get back to my life as a fashionista, okay? I became this attorney. Remember, I'm working full time, going to court, and then I turned myself into this fashionista. But eventually I had to quit my job as an attorney so that I could have the fashion life of my dreams. I was ready to be my own boss. You wouldn't believe the number of people who told me I was gonna fail. They looked at me crazy because I went to law school just to quit and go into fashion. Or the number of people who didn't understand what I was doing, so they didn't support me being my own boss. Do you know what? I didn't care. I knew I had that unicorn magic and I had to make it happen. So shortly after leaving my job as an attorney, I turned my love for fashion and clothes, the labels, the designers, the purses, into something that we call Think3 Media today, which is a marketing and PR agency. We began by helping fashion brands with their social media, their photography, their videography, and their blogs, all the things I learned how to do. So today, in this moment, we've grown to not only representing fashion companies, but now we've blossomed. We work with restaurants, business leaders, nonprofits, athletes, actors, you name it, we do it. We've won countless awards. I've won 2 Emmys. We've helped over 400 business owners solve their problems. And we work with people from all over the United States. And it all came from that one dream. You guys get where I'm going with this? Okay? You have that same power too. All you have to do is just lean in and tap into it.
Awesome. So that video was wonderful. It was great hearing from Leah. So we are actually going to drop the link for the full video if you guys would like to watch the full thing later. It is a phenomenal video. Leah, again, is a great and very valued JA volunteer, entrepreneur. I didn't know she was in Vogue though. That's pretty cool. That's awesome. It's been a while since I've seen this video, so that's great. So we are going to move into our open Q&A. So I would first like to introduce our awesome breakout volunteers. So first is Chandler Tucker. She is an account executive at Dallas Business Journal. Then Sasia Goins, head of marketing and client experience at AMN Healthcare. And then Nishan Sivasistan, head of strategy at AMN Healthcare. Awesome, I'm so excited. So I'm going to start asking questions. And again, any personal experiences, please, mention those. We'd love to hear about that. So I think my first question I'm going to ask everybody is, what did you want to be when you were 16 years old? I am going to start with Chandler.
Thanks, Nikki, for that question. I think when I was 16 years old, I wanted to be an actress, which soon as I got into school, I realized that I was more passionate about other things like marketing and making connections with people. So I'm really glad that I end up where I am now. But I think when I was 16, that was the end goal.
Any TV shows or movies that you made an appearance in?
Absolutely not. I don't even think I got that far, but school definitely pointed me in the right direction.
I would say it's never too late to follow your dreams.
Right.
And I would definitely watch whatever show you're in, but also DBJ probably does not want to lose you.
Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate the support.
You're welcome. Nishan, same question to you. What did you want to be when you were 16?
I wanted to be a doctor, actually. So obviously did not end up being one. So went to undergrad, Austin College, actually, which is a small school just up in Sherman, Texas. They're known for their pre-med program. And The reason they're really good at it is they weed folks out like me out. So I did not make it through there, but ended up going the business route, kind of figuring out my passion really lied more on that side. But in a roundabout way, 20 or so odd years later, I did find my way back in the healthcare industry as well.
Awesome. Perfect. Stasia, what about you?
So I don't know if I should admit this because at 16, I wanted to be a CEO. Like I just wanted to be a boss.
There you go. I love it.
Exactly. I know that sounds a little crazy, but even some of my best friends, we all shared this same aspiration. And why did I want to be a boss? Because I do like to tell people what to do, but more importantly, because I feel like I've always had this skill set of like understanding what people do really well naturally and helping them to accelerate that. And I felt like at the time, that's what CEOs did, right? They made money and they helped people really fulfill really their own destiny. So I think that's why I wanted to be CEO. Not quite there yet. And actually, now that I'm approaching 50, I do not want to be a CEO. But that's what I wanted to be at 16.
So, because again, I will say, I do feel like a lot of people associate like a girl boss with like a VP or leadership or CEO. So you mentioned that you used to believe that a CEO was about telling people what to do. What do you think a good CEO is today?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I think I would flip it on its head entirely and say the best CEOs are the best listeners, right? They don't know everything. And they know that they need to listen to the folks that they have hired and entrusted to be experts in their own arena. So I would say they have to be excellent listeners. They do have to be really smart, of course. They have to be able to set a vision that people will follow. Because if you think you're a leader and you turn around and no one's following you, you're just out for a walk. So they have to be able to set a really good vision that people will rally behind. And then listen when it's time to, are we achieving that vision or not? They have to be really humble and listen to figure out how to course correct.
Awesome. Thank you. So the panelists talked earlier about their mentorship experiences, but I wanted to ask you guys, so say you are, fresh out of college or trade school or right after graduation and you're going into the workforce. Again, we all know having a good mentor is crucial to your career journey and your career growth, but how would you guys suggest finding a mentor? Like what are avenues and places and ways that you found mentors that you currently have now? I'm going to give that question first to Chandler.
Sure. I definitely think that tapping into your resources from your school would be a great place to start. Leadership and teachers within your school, whether it's them or some other faculty member that could be a mentor to you, I would start there. And then I also was involved personally with a group called Women in Business here in Dallas, which was a fantastic mentorship sponsored by Veritex Bank. And it was for young girls in college, and found some really great mentors through that program. So I would encourage the students listening today to research what programs in Dallas could be a fit for you and that you'd be interested in getting a mentor from, because there are several groups in the area.
Awesome. Thank you. Nishan?
I would just piggyback on Chandler's comments. Trying to work with your schools. Those are great resources. I leveraged a number of them early on in my career as well. The other one too is just join these local groups. Any interests that are topical to you of nature. Way back in the day, I joined a group called DFW Real Estate Investor Network. I was like 20. Everyone else there was like 50, 60. So obviously it was just really about learning. And what you find are people are very generous with their time in their advice as well too. It's just honestly, it's just having the courage to ask, because most people will say yes. I haven't really ever run into anyone that said no. The other thing too is, whether it's LinkedIn or otherwise, just feel free to reach out to people too. Just drop them an email. I did a lot of that early on as well too. And even if that one person you email can't make time for you, they'll find somebody else who can. So just a couple of suggestions of things that I've done before.
Awesome. And kind of piggybacking off that question, during the first panel, when we were discussing mentorship, I know that a few of the panelists mentioned that it's also crucial to also have male mentors. So Nishan, as our only male volunteer today for this full program, how do you uplift and elevate the women in your workplace?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this has been an illuminating sort of panel for me, mainly to just understand different perspectives. And I think that's what it's all about all the time. For me in particular, what's unique about where I'm at, so just a little background context. So AMN is 70% women. Okay, so I think it's very, very different than maybe some of the other contexts that we heard. So it's very natural, I think, here in this environment. Other companies I've been a part of before are Accenture and some of those organizations. They're led by a female CEO. I'll tell you, when I was a part of that organization over 20 years ago, my leader was a woman. Her leader was a woman. Kind of rolled up that way as well too. So it's sort of always been natural for me. And when I don't have women or leaders around me, it's when it feels unnatural, because it's not what I've been accustomed to kind of growing up. And you know, there was one point where I did experience that when I was in technology, actually. So to answer your question directly, I actually found a few or a handful of women leaders, and we tried to figure out ways to actually elevate them, their presence and their voice. We did dedicated, focused efforts to just create a more inclusive environment. But I think it's just, you just naturally find these opportunities for folks, and you just pull them through where they need it. But part of what's interesting or unique for me, I would say, is I don't see as much of a difference, because I think everyone brings something a little bit unique to the table. I think Tracy summed it up best. It's about diversity of thought and perspective. Everyone brings something unique, and you just call on the folks that are stars, right? And especially when it's women as well too. So those are my thoughts on that.
Awesome, thank you. And kind of going off that question, Stasia, why do you think it's so important to have women in leadership and women represented in, you know, the boardrooms and making those decisions within corporations?
Great question. And let me just do a really quick plug for Nishan. He is a fabulous mentor. I actually started my career with AMN reporting directly to him. So he is fabulous, and I think he does it seamlessly. In terms of why it's important, all of us like to see someone that we think we can be. And it's really hard when you don't see any women in leadership positions to think, am I going to be the one, right? Am I going to be the one that is able to break through? When I do break through, is it going to be lonely? Because I will be the only one. And so it's really important that we can look up to and aspire to seeing other women leaders and how they lead. I think that's really important. And I know in the panel, Tracy, I think it was mentioned that it's important to still be a woman. You don't have to pretend that you're a man to ascend from a leadership perspective. And so I think it's important to see that there are women who are still very feminine and girl bosses in order to really model those behaviors, if you will. And then I think also, and this is a little bit to the sponsorship discussion, but when there are women in the boardroom making the decisions, you just know that they have the diversity from a gender and an ethnicity and a sexual orientation. They just have that diversity in mind when they're making decisions, right? And so they're really forcing their leadership teams to make sure that those things are being implemented. So it's critical that they're in the decision-making seats because then it actually will get done. But then just from a role modeling perspective, it's really important for us to be able to see something that we can eventually aspire to and become.
Awesome. Thank you. Could not agree more. So about being a girl boss, we don't all start in the CEO seat or, in the executive team. A lot of the people who want to start businesses or want to grow within their organization, they start with networking because it's all about relationships and relationship management. So I've been to a few networking events actually with Chandler Tucker here, and I've seen her shine. She is awesome at talking to everybody. So the question I'm going to ask the group is, I'll start with Chandler though first, is any tips for a young professional at a networking event, like first networking event they've gone to, any of your top tips and tricks?
Sure, Nikki, you are making me blush today. So thank you again for the compliment. But I think it just goes back to me being an extrovert, and really, I love and value any relationship I can create with anyone. I love making new friendships and connections, and something that my first mentor taught me that really stuck with me throughout my whole life has been to make friends first and the business will follow. So I definitely go into networking situations wanting to make friends and get to know people. I never lead with, what do you do for work, or where do you work, or, any of those boring, well, I might think they're boring, but I always start with things trying to get to know somebody personally instead of diving into the business aspects right off the bat. So that would be my advice for any networking situation. And also keep in mind that regardless if, that individual does not fit your ideal target prospect, you never know what value you're going to find from the conversation in general, what you're going to learn from them that you can then apply elsewhere, or where that individual is going to end up one day. So really see value in every relationship that you create, because it will be worth it in the end.
Awesome. Thank you. So Nishan, kind of related to that question, I know I've been at networking events where, I've asked like, so what do you do? And then there might be that awkward silence when conversation kind of stalls. Do you have any like top conversation topics or starters that you like to use at networking events?
Yeah, I'm still working on this, just to be candid. So it's still a work in process for me. Typically, I keep it very, very simple. Hey, how you doing? How was the event for you? Where about are you from? If there was a game recently, I might raise that, say, hey, are you a fan? Did you catch that? So nothing terribly creative in there. Just really sort of be yourself, whatever's topical and maybe makes sense. Like Chandler, I do typically try to avoid what do you do or any of those things. It's just about genuinely just getting to know somebody, who they are first. I try to, make it to where no matter what, it's a positive interaction for everyone involved in it. So, like I said, it's a working process, and not a great set of tips there, but it's sort of worked for me so far.
Awesome. Thank you. Stasia, do you have any business like etiquette tips for networking events or business events in general for a young professional going to their first networking luncheon or networking happy hour? Any business etiquette tips that you would give?
That's a really great question. So I do think it's important to, my first business etiquette tip, and this is networking events or otherwise, is be early, even if it's only 5 minutes early, but be early, because early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. So be early. And I think go prepared, what do you want to get out of the event? So Chandler just referred to them as prospects, but what do you want to get out of the event? Do you get a list ahead of time so you could start to understand who's going to be there? How many contacts do you want to make? So that would be something else that I would highly, highly suggest. I would suggest having your elevator pitch ready, right? So if someone does ask you what you do, you don't go humana, humana, humana. Your elevator pitch is if you were riding from floor 1 to floor 5 with the CEO of your organization, what would you tell them about you, who you are and what you do? And you should have that ready so that when people do ask you that sometimes uncomfortable question, you're ready with an answer. And then the last thing I think is, in terms of your preparation, be thinking about what you can add in terms of value. I think sometimes young professionals tend to think, I'm young, I have nothing to offer. Our CEO actually hired an intern this summer to be her mentor, right? Because they were young. This person actually happened to be my kid. But because she was young, because she wasn't jaded, to give her perspective on what young people are thinking and want from a workforce and a workplace environment. So don't go in thinking just because I'm young and don't have as much experience as someone that I don't have something to offer. So think about, what do you have to offer that person? Because I always say mentoring is a relationship, which means it's both ways. You're not just taking from the mentor. You're always thinking, what can I give you? And sometimes it's just a perspective that, depending on their level, they don't get anymore. And you can really add value in ways that maybe some of the more seasoned professionals can't.
Awesome, thank you. So it's our last question. It's going to be a speed round. It's the same question for everybody. So try to keep your answers under 30 seconds if you can. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self about to graduate and enter the workforce or college or whatever you decided to do after graduation? What piece of advice would you give yourself? I'm going to start with Chandler.
I would say, love how you calling me as I'm trying to craft my answer in my head here. I would say let's see. Oh, I know. I would not doubt myself so much when I'm in uncomfortable situations and really see the value of being in an uncomfortable situation, because whether I'm scared to do it or nervous, it's always a great learning opportunity and I get better and better each time. So I would say have more confidence and stop doubting myself.
There you go. See, I can put you on the spot, make you answer first, and you still got it. So
thanks, Nikki.
You're welcome. Nishan?
Yeah, I would say just go for it. You know, you're young, it's early, you have all sorts of opportunities to learn. If whatever you pursue doesn't work out, you sort of got the rest of your life to sort of work through different things. So yeah, I think to Chandler's point, just you know, don't doubt yourself. You know, you've actually got a whole lot more to offer than you recognize and realize. But honestly, you just got to go for it. You look at some of the most incredible companies and opportunities that have been built in the world. They're by young people who just simply don't know any better, but they're able to figure out new and creative solutions because of that. So one of my principles is, I believe adults audit and kids explore. And so leverage that opportunity that you have to be a kid and go explore.
I love that. Yeah, I know I'm not a panelist, so it's not me answering, but I would say, kind of like piggybacking off you, if I had to give myself advice, I would say yes. Take every opportunity you can to learn and grow. I think that's the biggest thing. If I could impart any wisdom on an 18-year-old Nikki, that is what I would do. But Stasia?
That's awesome. I would probably say to remember that there's nobody better than you, but you're not better than anybody else, right? So finding that right balance and confidence in what you have to offer, but realizing that sometimes there's better ideas in the room, and that's okay. And that doesn't have anything to do with your competence, or shouldn't have anything to do with your confidence either.
I love that. Awesome. Again, thank you guys. Chandler, Nishan, Stasia, thank you so much for volunteering today. Again, another big shout out to our presenting sponsor, Toyota Industries Commercial Finance, American City Business Journal, Dallas Business Journal, and AMN Healthcare. We are so happy to have you here. This has been a phenomenal day. I know I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Zainab Hamid.
Well, Nikki stole all the thank yous that I had to give. This was honestly, oh no. Okay, I'm unmuted. Sorry about that, guys. This was honestly one of my favorite sessions. I learned so much here just being, you know, a JA Dallas employee. So thank you guys so much again for joining us. I wrote so many notes also in my index cards. So I'm so glad to have you all today. Again, thank you to Dallas Business Journal, American City Business Journal, and AMN Healthcare. So we're going to give the students another chance to fill out our post-session survey for a chance to win a $25 gift card. So I'm going to give everybody a minute to get that done. I posted the survey down in the chat box as well. And after that, we'll finish off the session. Awesome. So while everybody else finishes that up, please be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at JA Dallas or Junior Achievement of Dallas. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this session, we have 4 more to go. We host sessions every single Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m. So we'll discuss different topics, have different sponsors. So it's new people every single week giving us their input. And again, if you attend 5 to 7 sessions, you'll be invited to our Spring Bold Tea, where you'll meet all of these volunteers in person and have the opportunity to talk to everybody. So thank you guys again so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you next week. Bye.